Okay, so kind of quick housekeeping stuff first, right? Everybody is a couple of times, maybe once or twice more, we'll recommend that you put something into the chat, right? We'll have if the opportunity presents itself, if you're curious to see how particular schools operate, we might say throw out some colleges that you're interested in, throw those in the chat. But really, we're going to have you put any questions into the Q&A tonight, right? The big reason there is that everything is transcribed and recorded so that you all will get this recording tomorrow along with the slide deck. And for those of your peers that couldn't make it or kind of got to be in and out tonight, they will benefit from that as well, right? So any questions which we recommend, and yes, the question is, we got somebody from overseas now, from the UK. Yeah, you're going to get the slide deck, you're going to get the recording, but again, you'll also benefit from all the questions and all the answers too. So
you can be anonymous, so please put, and we'll remind you, but please put your questions in Q&A unless we ask you to put something in chat like we just did.
That's right. Right. And exactly to Peg's point there too, right? You got personal questions, that's fine. Ask them. This is a great time to do it. I like to think that between Peg and I, we cannot be stumped. You're going to have to dig deep if that's the case. So, I'm sure you got tons of questions. We'll probably get out in front of a lot of them tonight, but make sure you bring any questions to us. That's a big part of what we're here for. The hope is that you leave this thing just at least a little bit more informed about how this whole process works, how exactly your family fits into this, right? Where do we start? That's a big question I think a lot of families have, like, where do we even begin, right? And I think this is the best place to do it. You're going to find out, am I eligible for financial aid? What types of schools is my kid going to get scholarships at? What are these colleges actually going to cost me? This is what we're going to focus on tonight. So I think you're going to leave here really, really well informed. The other thing that before, again, we kind of get into intros, and let me stop sharing for just a minute here. I'm going to encourage you and remind you more than once about an event that we got coming a couple of weeks from now. And Peg, if you could put the link in the chat or Q&A or wherever. Sure, so we're doing a boot camp, right? A college boot camp the week of August 15th. It's going to be each one of those days that week of August 15th with who we consider to be the best partners in the space, right? So I would say the number one most popular college essay guy you might find in the world is Ethan Sawyer. He's going to lead a day that's all about what we need to know about these essays. Jocelyn Pearson is arguably one of the most renowned kind of private scholarship search savants. She's going to talk about, here's everything we need to know about private scholarships. Method learning is who we think is the most effective at an affordable price point test prep, right? SAT and ACT. They're gonna spend time talking about what you should know here on that day. Even if it's test optional, they're going to provide some value there. And College Wise is one of the biggest kind of comprehensive admissions counselors in the country, in the world. They have a pretty extensive reach overseas as well. They're going to focus on everything we need to know about this common app, right? So our idea, and we're going to focus on kind of the affordability piece. There'll be some overlap with what we're talking about tonight, but register for it. It's free. Even if you can't make it live, your student can't make it live, you'll get all the recordings, you'll get everything packaged up. And again, it kind of gives you access to who we think are some of the biggest, most experienced partners in this space. So we're psyched about that. Take advantage of it. And then the other thing there is we'll have a couple bonus sessions. We're going to do one for student athletes. We're going to do one kind of focused on 529s and savings. But anyways, register for it, share it with your friends. It's going to be a heck of a week. Again, we'll kind of flag this at the end of tonight as well, but I wanted to make sure.
But I put in the chat and Matt said it, but if you didn't catch it, because we already got a question, yes, it's free. It's free and you'll get recordings. And we got a lot of great questions already, Matt, but guys, I'm going to hold off on some of these because we're going to answer them, right? We're going to answer all of these. So if you still feel like you didn't get it answered, go ahead and ping us, but we're going to hit all this stuff. So great questions already.
Yeah, I appreciate the enthusiasm. So with that, I'll keep these intros super short here so we can dive right into the content. Again, my name's Matt Carpenter. I'm based in, born and raised in the birthplace of American independence, Ipswich, Massachusetts. It's on the North Shore of Ipswich, just outside of the city of Champions, Boston, Mass. Here, I still live in the area. I live in Beverly, Mass, and I'm at my office here in Salem, Mass. Two little cities just on the North Shore, as we like to say locally. But I've been doing this my entire life. This is my entire career, I should say, the second half of my life. This is what I live, eat, sleep, breathe every single day, all day, and it's trying to figure out how to help families navigate this really confusing, overwhelming, up against big time odds process to do it the right way, right? Our mission is really, really straightforward as you're looking at here. And I think we have collectively built an awesome platform, technology, team, et cetera. And we're out here trying to spread the gospel every single day. And Peg is someone that I've always admired from afar. She's had an awesome business and following out in the Seattle area, in the Pacific Northwest. And we've just been fans of her and kind of colleagues in this space, and finally figured out a way to get her officially on our team. I like to call her the fairy godmother of financial aid, because she is, and you all are in very good hands with her. For those of you that are again are fans, you know that already. For those of you that are new, you will witness that over the next hour or so here. So Peg, I'll let you introduce yourself briefly, and we'll dive in.
Yeah. So first thing I want to tell you, and Matt kind of talked about this, I have twins, so I've been through this times two, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it. You just need a lot of deep breaths. And I understand where you're at. My background is in financial planning, wealth management. And when my kids hit high school, I did what a lot of you probably did. You start thinking about this. Maybe you've been saving, but like, how the heck is this all going to work? And I was just dumbfounded at how confusing and crazy it was. And I noticed that most of my friends were not doing a deep dive into this, and we're kind of drifting through this process, which can create a lot of stress, a lot of different types of stress. So I just kind of had this aha moment that I should dig deep into this late stage college planning, this niche. And that's what I did. So I started my own business back in 2014, way to the quad. And as Matt said, I got to know these guys early on, was using the software, beta tested it with them. And we just always had a partnership and talked about having a deeper partnership. And that just made sense late last year. So this is what gets me out of bed in the morning. I love working with families and just helping you guys navigate this process, because there's some things you just don't know if you don't know them, right? And we're here tonight to tell them to you, so then you'll know, right? And knowledge is really power in this process. Help you get through it with less stress and find a great schools for your kids.
That's it. Before I give you there we are, Peggy, the dream team.
And actually, I'm from Jersey, which I affectionately call God's country. Most people don't, but I do. And I know I have some Jersey people here, so.
God's country, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer, right? Okay, and so here's before Peg kind of dives into the content, you got an email before tonight saying that, hey, we recommend you create an account at mycap.collegeaidpro.com, and Peg just put that in the chat for me if you haven't already. But the reason why we want you to do this is because the short, or I should say that it's not as short as just going to the website, but beyond that, the first thing that we want to do, which we're going to just talk about specifically in the first kind of 20 minutes here, is you want to answer the question, am I eligible for financial aid? And then how much and at which colleges, right? So that's going to allow you to do that right away and get a grasp at what these particular schools that you're talking about at home are actually going to cost your family. So if you haven't done that already, I kind of recommend you do it in the background now. So as we're going along, you're not just getting this high level information, but kind of drilling down. And it doesn't, there's a free account that everybody can access. And we'll talk about when we leave tonight, if people want to engage us beyond tonight, beyond our free services and content, what that looks like. But we recommend everybody start there. If you've done any of these net price calculators before, they're pretty, they're a pain in the ass, right? And there's also, varying levels of accuracy, this is your instant net price calculator for every school in the country that's going to be the most accurate. So that's where we feel so strongly that you want to start here. Without further ado, Peg, take us away.
All right. So the first thing you've got to understand about this is that all these colleges are discounting. So what we're going to talk about tonight is how they discount and then how you can find out which colleges are going to discount for your child. And it's going to differ from school to school. It's going to differ if you have twins from one child to the other. So how are they discounting? The first way they do this is with need-based grants, which is on the far left, right? So this is the free money. This is what you're looking for, but it's based on financial need. You have to have financial need. The second way they do this is through merit-based scholarships. And sometimes you'll hear the term scholarship used for need-based, but for the purposes of our webinar, let's just think of grants are need-based, but down the road, you need to make sure that that's how the colleges are using the terminology. But need-based grants, so it's endowment money, right? But it's based on your financial need versus merit scholarships, which this is offered through the Office of Admissions. They have no idea about your ability to pay, but it's based on the student and their grades, test scores, athletics, musical talent, whatever it happens to be. And some colleges, they don't all offer merit the same way. They don't all meet need the same way. And that's what we're going to dig into tonight. Like, how do you find that out? How do you know which schools are going to work for your family? So those are the two ways that the colleges are giving out their endowment money. And you want to get the endowment and maximum endowment money so that you're spending less from your 529 or your cash flow or however you're doing it. The last bucket is what we call self-help. So this is loans and work study. So it's part of many kids' financial aid packages, but you either have to work for it, obviously, or you have to pay it back. So it's not free money, but it's part of packages for sure. So those are the three different ways. Down the road, when you get financial aid award letters, you're going to see this sticker price, which is called the cost of attendance, be decreased at the colleges. And like I said, they're all doing it. It's just a matter of how. Okay, so first way is the need-based aid. So how do they figure out if you're eligible for need-based aid? Well, first of all, you have to submit the financial aid forms, and we're going to get into those in a few minutes. So very simple formula. They take this cost of attendance, which is tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, personal expenses. This has been going up for decades, as we all know. We're calling this the sticker price. So they take this cost of attendance, COA, and they subtract something called your expected family contribution. And that's what gets calculated from the FAFSA and the CSS profile, the two different financial aid forms. And what the EFC is it's the minimum annual amount that the colleges think you as a family can afford to pay for, I said annual, 1 year of college. And it's the minimum. So it doesn't mean if it's $30,000, that's all you're in for. Very often you're going to be expected to pay more. And I've been doing this for over a decade. And I've had one mom who saw estimates of her EFC and said, yeah, I get it, Peg, that's doable. So just realize most people are pretty shocked at the size of their EFCs. And sometimes it is what it is, but we'll talk through that. So they take the cost of attendance, that sticker price, subtract the EFC, and that's your need, right? That you're potentially eligible. And that's one of those forms of discounts that your child could get from a college.
Okay, let's head down in our answering some of these great questions here, Peg. But so I'll let you kind of talk through our platform and the EFCs here.
Yeah, so this is our platform, MyCap, that Matt was encouraging you to go in and set up your free account. What you're going to see up at the top are 3 EFCs. And we're not going to get really deep. We don't have enough time tonight, but there's a federal EFC on the far left. That's what most colleges in the country are going to use because most schools only require the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Then there's an institutional EFC that comes off of the CSS profile, and we're going to get into that. So don't worry if that doesn't mean anything to you. And then the third EFC there, that's just, think of it as a subset of the CSS profile one. And what's really important to show you, and this goes into this, you don't know what you don't know. If you look at these sticker prices at these three schools, you've got Northwestern, Stanford, and UCLA. Pretty high sticker prices at all of them. You can see what we're doing in MyCap. We're immediately showing you, hey, this is your net cost. So the discount is obviously the difference. And how did we get that? Well, if we look at Northwestern and Stanford, they are both schools that require the CSS profile. So that institutional EFC that I called out up here, that 79,000, that's the number, that's an estimate of the number that they're going to use. So you would probably are thinking, well, what's going on here, Peg? Why isn't Stanford about 2,000 less, right? That's because Stanford doesn't look at home equity. And that's a piece of the puzzle in the institutional EFC. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. But what I'm trying to, the idea I'm trying to send home here is these colleges can be dramatically different. Northwestern, same kind of school, still the institutional EFC, but very different net cost projection for this family. And this happens, right? And we've got this built into this tool because we know what the colleges are doing, right? Then you look at a UCLA state school. If you're an out-of-state kid, which our sample family is, again, you might be thinking, well, Peg, there's a $49,000 EFC because that's what they use. Why are they paying full cost? That's because UCLA is never going to give an out-of-state kid that has a family that has an EFC that high a dime, right? So that's really important information. Where I am, kids love the UC schools, and they tend to be really, really expensive. So these are the kind of nuances that kind of blew my mind when my kids hit high school and I started realizing. So this is the kind of stuff that we're trying to open your eyes to here.
Yeah, and just a couple things I would add there is that this is indicative of most families in that many schools, and oftentimes most schools, the sticker price is ultimately irrelevant, right? And it might be the third most important variable of what you're actually going to pay there. Generally speaking, that number, what's more important, right, is what's your EFC? What particular EFC is the college in question use, and how generous or not are they in terms of meeting need-based financial aid? Are they like a Stanford, or are they like a UCLA, or are they somewhere in between, right? So Peg, I think we have time where folks can, why don't you guys throw in a college or two that you're curious about here? And
yeah, go ahead and put that in the chat. Yeah, go ahead and put that in the chat.
And we can put in a college or two and kind of see why we get down, take another look at, and probably a closer look on why the net cost is what it is. So if you're curious about any particular schools, and I see a bunch in here. Hey,
there's tons rolling in. Take your pick, Matt.
My alma mater, baby, Stonehill College.
That one popped up.
Let's go. And I'll have you know, Peg, I don't even know if I've told you this, but you knew I was a very much sought after scholarship athlete, football specifically, right? Now Stonehill College just announced they're moving to Division I, so that therefore I am a Division I scholarship athlete now.
Ergo, you are, yes.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So let's take a look at Stonehill, right? Why aren't we paying the sticker price here? And if I click on Stonehill or any school here, we're gonna see a couple things. So we're always gonna look at the sticker price. Obviously, that's staring us in the face. But a big theme we want you all to leave with here tonight is what are you going to actually pay there? That's what matters. And we see for this particular student, really smart kid, actually, in addition to being eligible for some need-based aid there, they're also going to get a merit-based scholarship. But in most cases, the college, the institution is not going to stack those, what's called stack those on top of one another, right? Now, in the rare cases that they do, it will be reflected in the projections. But for this kid, they're going to get, and any student in most cases, get the higher of these two numbers that's going to drive down to the net cost. So the merit scholarship, that's why this piece is highlighted here is what's going to bring the cost of attendance from 70 down to the 40,000 for this family. Okay. And then we can look into, well, why? First thing I can do is skip down to scholarship, something that we're really proud of. We have every scholarship at every college in the country is baked into the platform here. And we're really good about projecting how much, if any, is your kid going to get, right? And that's what we've done here for this student. And then we can kind of see from a financial aid standpoint, why did we go down to, or why are we getting, a little less than $20,000 in grants? Well, Stonehill uses the institutional methodology, which for this family was, I think, something around, I forget what the number was exactly, but and they're meeting 90% of need, which is why the delta between the cost of attendance and the institutional contribution, right? They're meeting 90% of that. So that's why they're getting some need-based financial aid. And again, just kind of while I'm here, we also have the average starting salaries 1, 5, 10 years after college, if you know what your major is. And even if you don't, you can just put in on unknown and we're still going to give you the averages there. So I think a nice amount of information baked into, each school that you might be interested in. Peg, you want to give me another one or two while we're here? We'll just
how about, we've got University of Cincinnati. How about that?
Okay, so let's see what.
Great co-op school, actually.
Co-op school. So we can kind of see what's the deal here. Now, state school in general, not very generous with need-based aid, especially if we're out of state. This is a Mass resident, but again, really smart kid here. So we can expect to get a merit-based scholarship. And actually that gives me an excuse to click on the admissions tab here, where we can also get some context as to why the platform is projecting the merit-based scholarship that we are. And again, it can give you a kind of a gut check of, okay, well, that makes sense based on the GPA that we entered, based on the test scores, if we entered, or test optional, right? Well, we're also going to project where you're going to get scholarships, even if you're going test optional or really don't test well at all. That's going to be in here as well. So I hope that's helpful. I know we spent a little bit of time going down the rabbit hole there, but in my mind, it helps to kind of say, well, how does this actually work, and why are we getting a discount or not, and why, even though we're sending the same information to all these schools, why are we getting back a different end result? And there's lots of reasons why, but our kind of short answer is just go put your information in there and find out what these schools are actually going to cost you. So we'll get back into some talking points here, Peg, and you can kind of walk through each of these ones here and talk about a little bit of the strategy maybe, but then also what are some of the big missteps that so many people make.
Sure. Yeah. So, and people were asking a few questions about this, so I think this will clear some stuff up. So these EFCs, what they're going to be asking about is parent income, parent assets, student income, student assets. When we're talking about assets, we are talking about non-retirement assets. So 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, 403bs, all of those are retirement accounts. So that's one of the biggest mistakes people make on these forms, is when they ask for your net worth, they put their big fat 401k, and that shoots up your EFC. So remember, it's checking, savings, you have a stock portfolio at Merrill Lynch, any of that kind of stuff, CDs. If you have, my neck of the woods, people have stock options if they're vested. All of that is considered a parental asset, right? So that needs to be included. Your income is what it is, right? They're going to ask for your adjusted gross income. There's a few add backs, things that you do, like if you're contributing pre-tax to your 401k, which is extremely common in the financial aid world, they add that back in. So it's not a tax world thing, it's a financial aid world thing. So those are the assets that are considered. Parent assets are assessed at a much lower rate than students. It's up to 5.64% for parents. Students are going to be 20 or 25%. So that's why you always hear get assets out of your kid's name, which is accurate for certain families that could be eligible for need-based aid. That's where these strategies come in. Doesn't mean that you definitely should be moving money. You need to do your homework and see if you need to do it. Another big mistake people make, and it's completely logical, is you might have a 529 and you're the owner, the parent, the parent's the owner, and the student is always a beneficiary. And you think, well, it's for my kid, so that's my child's asset. No, that's actually your asset. And that's because in the IRS's eyes, it is your asset. You can always pull it out, pay some penalties, pay some tax, and you can go to Europe, right? So it's so remember that when you're doing your FAFSA and CSS, the balances in the 529 are a parent asset. Grandparent 529s aren't even on the form, okay? The CSS yeah.
Let me interrupt you and shift gears quickly, because we've got this question a couple times and I think it's a great one. If you know what, I'll talk about that when we talk about the petition. Sorry, let me cut myself off.
Okay.
I'm cutting everybody off.
Okay, the next little box. Okay, do they care about your debt? Do they care about credit card debt, car loans? No, they don't ask about it. They do ask about medical expenses. It's not really debt, but it's, they ask about any medical expenses on the CSS that you can disclose, but that doesn't mean that you can't disclose things to the college. Okay. This is a time where, one, you want to look as poor as possible, and you want to be open with the colleges if it's going to benefit you. And you have that, if it's going to benefit you, is an important thing to understand. One of the things on the CSS profile that they're going to ask about is your home. They're going to ask about all your real estate on both forms, but the home you live in, your primary home, they're going to ask about it. What's the value? What'd you buy it for? How long have you lived there? Yada, yada, right? And most people overvalue their home. You want to be honest. You definitely want to be honest on these things, but you want to find the lowest defensible value that's honest. And there's something called, we have on the slide, IRS quick sale value. So whatever is a value, how things are selling in your street or your neighborhood, you can usually take like 15 to 20% off, because you're not going to get that, right? In the state of Washington, we pay sales tax like you would on a candy bar on your house sale, right? So you're not going to walk away with all that money. So people very often overvalue their home. And remember that Stanford example, the higher the value of your home, when you take away your liabilities, which is your equity, it just makes your equity that much higher. And some colleges actually look at all of it as like a viable asset. So just keep that in mind.
Peg, and also a great kind of comment here, and I think it's something that's worth clarifying here. So we honored to have a guest that is a former director of financial aid at UCLA, and also collaborated with the admissions office, also worked at Rice University, and wanted to point out that need-based aid and merit-based scholarships were awarded at their offices, which is the case. And we know that, to clarify, generally speaking, right? And this is everything's generally speaking here, right? There's no such thing as universal or black and white rules. Generally speaking, out-of-state students do not receive need-based grants, free money at the UCs and most out-of-state colleges, unless their EFC is really on the lower side, right? Most middle-class families, we're not seeing any type of need-based discounts at the UCs, or including UCLA or any of the state schools, unless we have a very low EFC. And merit-based aid exists there as well. It's just incredibly competitive, right? So that's why we didn't show it for that particular student. So to clarify, UCLA does give need-based aid and grants and merit-based aid or merit-based scholarships. But number one, the merit-based it's just so hard to get into UCLA, period. But to get in there and get a scholarship is rarefied air. And if you will get the need-based grants, even if you're out of state, but your EFC has to be very, very, very low. So most people that are middle class or above, you're not going to get need-based grants. So do they exist? Certainly. Thanks for flagging that. And if we misspoke there, that's why it's pretty awesome to have a former director of UCLA financial aid. And by the way, I won't say your name out loud, but let's talk after, because we have a lot of great financial aid counselors, Harvard, MIT, Denison, that are a part of our team right now. So please ping me after. But anyways, just to clarify there.
Yeah, if I thought I said for an out-of-state kid, you're not going to see the need-based. But I've seen UCLA merit for kids in Seattle. It's just, it's very competitive, but it's very competitive at a lot of schools. So
Sure. Sorry, buddy, but I thought that was a
Sure. Yeah.
worthy comment I wanted to address.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think I'm good here on this slide. And we're gonna get into the merit in a minute too. Okay, so how does this whole thing work? There's something, if you've seen this in the media, something called prior year. So President Obama put this in place several years ago. When you are submitting the forms, again, I said they're going to ask about income and assets. So if you have a rising senior, forms go live October 1, you're going to be asked all about 2021 taxes, right? So we're most of the way through 2022 by this fall. That seems like really far away, but you should have them filed. It should be done. And that's how it works. The easiest way to remember this is think about, when is my kid starting? What year are they starting? Whatever year it is of their college. Subtract 2, and that's the year you're going to be reporting on. So if you have a rising senior, it's going to be 21, 22, 23, and 24. Those are the 4 tax years that you're going to be reporting on. And I call, and a lot of people do, that first year your base year. So for a rising senior, it's 2021. For a rising junior, it's 2022. And people have asked a few questions about the FAFSA Simplification Act. We've got a slide on that in a little bit, so we are going to touch on that. The income, as I said earlier, right now it's line 11. Who knows? And they change the taxes again, but the current 1040, it's your AGI plus it's called untaxed income. There's a few items, and I talked about the biggie for most families is the pre-tax retirement contributions. And then students on the FAFSA, not on the CSS, there's a income protection allowance, and students can make up to about 7,000, and it's a wash. So most kids are not making more than that. So if you have a great summer job and you pull in $5,500, it's going to be zeroed out as far as the calculation of the EFC, because that's assessed at 50% for kids. So, but for most kids, it's not an issue because they're not making that much money.
And let me just, we'll spend some more time. This will be kind of the last talking point that I'll spend some time on when we close here. But we got a question, and actually a couple of questions, and get these all the time, specifically over the last few years, that are, okay, they're looking at 2021 tax year. But what if that was a complete anomaly, and that was a particularly high year, but we had a really low year before, we have a low year now, and that's going to be the case. What do we do? Because for the most part, you're not presenting your situation in paragraph form, right? By and large, you're going to be answering really black and white questions. What was your 2021 adjusted gross income, specifically and especially on the FAFSA? Yeah, so you have to present the information as it is, and you have to present the supporting documents, but then it's all about communication, and I'll talk about kind of drilling down specifically on the process. It's all about communication with these colleges after the fact to bring that to their attention, right? To say, hey, yes, our income was what it was in 2021, but we can document and prove that was we took a one-time distribution. We had we took some relief from COVID, whatever it might have been that caused a spike in that particular year, which was kind of terrible timing from a financial aid standpoint. And there are cases, and colleges aren't obligated to, and we're going to see a myriad of different kind of responses to this, of how it will play out, ultimately depending on the college, and oftentimes the specific individual financial aid counselor that's kind of assigned to your case is going to have a lot to do with, are we going to have a successful appeal? But that's what I'm going to spend some time on. So absolutely, we're going to communicate that with each of these colleges, but that's kind of a manual process, right? We got to complete the forms and answer the questions that they're asking, and then go back and bring some color, bring some context, bring some additional documentation to support your case for hopefully getting some additional consideration. Thanks.
And all income, because I hit one that I was going to answer live when I was about to type, so my bad on that. Yeah, it looks at your AGI. So if you have this question was asking about passive income, if you've got unearned income like cap gains and stuff. Yeah, it includes all of that. If it doesn't hit your tax return, then it's not on your tax return. So.
Yep.
And we've got a bunch of divorce questions, but I think we're going to hit that when we get
I'll spend
into
some
that
time on
section.
that. Yeah.
We're going to work because that's fun. We get some good planning there. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what if you don't qualify for need-based aid? I'm sure there's people on this webinar that are like, my EFC is going to be super high, right? And so you're not going to have need. The colleges are still discounting for that type of family, and they're doing it through the merit aid, which I talked about earlier, right? This is Bill Gates's kids can get merit aid, right? So but not all schools do this in the same way. And some schools give zero or very, very little merit aid. I'll tell you right now, the Ivy Leagues, if you have a kid that has a 1600 and a 5.0 GPA weighted and that's great. That might help your child get in, but they're not going to get money for that. So keep that in mind. That doesn't mean you shouldn't apply to those schools, but you should do it understanding your net cost. And in MyCap, it's going to show you that. And then maybe that's where you have a conversation as a family around, hey, Junior, you're going to have to go find some private scholarships, and maybe we'll put in a little bit more cash flow, whatever you decide, but you don't want to be surprised by that, right? And actually, it's right down there. It says, the Ivies, the Amherst of the world, they don't give merit aid. They're wonderful at meeting needs. So if you're a need-based family, those schools are going to meet 100% of need, and you could get a really nice discount. So again, it just depends on your family and where you fit at these different schools. We strongly at CAP encourage families to submit these financial aid forms, because there are some colleges out there that want those on file to give merit aid. And I know it doesn't sound logical, because merit aid, I'm just got finished telling you, is not based on need, but it is what it is. If they require it, unless you want to go down a rabbit hole and figure out which schools those are and make sure that whoever you're talking to is giving you the straight scoop, it's just, honestly, it's just easier to submit them. And the FAFSA, it's free, and you're submitting it to the government. You're already going to be filing your taxes. So it's kind of a no-brainer on that one. The other thing, and he has down here at the bottom on the slide, value schools, right? If the cost of attendance is lower, that's going to make things cheaper. And if you can get a little discount on top of it, that's a win-win. Shout out for Go Dukes. My daughter went to JMU, awesome school. And it's a screaming deal for out of state. It really, really is. I know 40,000 is crazy to call a screaming deal, but in today's world, it really is. So this might be the way you've got to grab these scholarships. So we're going to show you, you're probably thinking, okay, so how the heck do I know which schools offer merit aid, and will my kid even be eligible with their grades and test scores?
Totally. And so a couple of things to add there, right? Because I think some of this stuff is just like, it's counterintuitive, a lot of it, right? And we just spent so much time telling you about how, well, cost of attendance doesn't matter, ignore it, right? That's what we said for the first half hour. Well, if you have a really high EFC, it does matter, right? Because that means we're not going to be eligible for need-based aid, or not much need-based aid. So then the actual cost of attendance does matter. And as maybe in some ways, simple as that sounds, it gets overlooked, I think, sometimes when we talk about the overall cost of this thing, especially if we're thinking about grad school, right? And that's where we go to school. Undergrad might matter a little less. Now, I don't want to go down that kind of discussion, but how I just kind of summarize it is that, there's a whole bunch of different ways that your kid can go have an amazing experience and graduate with amazing opportunities. And that doesn't mean it has to be $85,000 a year, right? Now, are there plenty of instances in which it's you can justify paying a premium to go to those types of schools? Of course. But I don't think that there's always one path to a phenomenal outcome, right? So that's why at a minimum, we just want families hedging their bets. And the public school honors programs are something that I point to too, where some of these, maybe a generation ago, some of these public colleges just were not what they are today, right? Like UMass here locally, our parents always called it ZooMass, and everybody got in there, and it's not like that anymore, right? And that's the case with most, especially flagship state universities. I always talk about, I reference Arizona State University a lot, right? Where maybe especially where up here in the Northeast, we just kind of think about that as, pool parties and a party school and all this. And yeah, of course, that's an element of it, but especially when I talk about the honors program there, it's one of the it's on the very short list as one of the best in the country. And again, great opportunities, great experience, and at a price point that's not nearly as high as maybe some of their peers. So again, just kind of a different way of looking at this. Now, again, kind of back to trying to figure out where we're going to get scholarships. Now, a couple of things to just like note here, right? We mentioned a few times, everybody has access to the platform for free, but we ring fence a couple of the features here. One of them is we limit the amount of schools that you put in, and then you don't have access to what's called this advanced school search. Now, and we'll talk about in our paid version of this platform is $149 for the year, or $14.99 a month over 12 months. And everybody tonight is going to get a discount if they upgrade, which again, I'll talk about at the end. You can put it in there now, Peg. It's I think it's save 2023. Maybe check that. Actually, I'll check that last slide for me. But either way, before we end tonight, we'll give you a discount for 23% off. But this
I'm gonna wait to put it in until
yeah, let's do that. This advanced search, right, is a way that no matter who you are, we hope gives you some more ideas of schools that might be more cost effective for your family based on your family situation here, right? So, let's say if you have a student that wants to be relatively close to home and they're most comfortable at the smaller schools. We know we're thinking about 4-year institutions. Maybe we know our major, maybe not, right? Doesn't really matter. And we know that's in most cases pretty fluid. But there's some other criteria in here. But once we know that, we can kind of pair these admissions preferences with what's going to make the most sense for our family financially, right? So, for example, if we know based on our EFCs we're eligible for financial aid, we can say, well, just go show us, what checks those admissions boxes, but it's also great from a need-based financial aid standpoint, and have that maybe inform some of the lists, schools on our list. But it's pretty stinking hard to get into MIT, right? And but we might get some other good ideas here. But what if we want to just search by who's going to give us the most scholarship money? We're not eligible for financial aid. Our EFCs are too high. We can just search based on that, right? And Wheaton College is a nice little liberal arts private school just south of Boston here. And for this family, they might be interested to say, hey, that wasn't on our radar, but if we're going to get a $40,000 discount, that's a pretty good, that's something we might want to seriously look at, right? Or a St. Michael's college, awesome school up in Burlington, Vermont, where we're going to get 30 grand off. So this is how we want people to leverage our platform and make sure that they are, especially if we're not eligible for need-based aid. That's a great way to figure out how to hedge our bets and get some good ideas for schools that could be good fits from a merit-based standpoint. So I think you're going to get these slides kind of in the sake of time here. I will, we can come back to these and spend some more time if time allows, but just to make sure we try to cut you guys loose as close to 8 as possible. I think hopefully we hammered home that point and the differences between need-based aid and merit-based aid. And hopefully you guys are starting to figure out where you fall on the spectrum. If you pop your information on there and senior EFCs. Now, we Peg and I do presentations all year round, every month of the year. We will be back. Obviously, we're doing the boot camp in August, the second week of August. We'll do another presentation that'll be similar to this. There'll be certainly some overlap at the end of August. And we'll do those through September. And then in the fall, in October, rather, we'll get really granular with the financial aid applications. We do these like horrible nights for Peg and I, line by line through the FAFSA and CSS profile, right? Horrible for us, I think provide some value to you all. So with that is to say, I'm not going to get too far into the weeds tonight. I just want to hit on some high level concepts, plant some seeds. How do we apply for financial aid? It comes down to the school, right? Every school is different. We have a financial aid counselor on here tonight that worked at UCLA, that worked at Rice, and it's a different process, different deadlines, right? Every college, with very few exceptions, requires the FAFSA. For UCLA, that's all they require. For a Rice, in addition to the FAFSA, they require the CSS profile. I can almost guarantee that, again, their deadlines are different. Their verification process is different. So you have to look at these like private businesses, and they each run their business differently. And it's up to you to figure out what the colleges you're applying to require, when they need it, how they need it. The communication, in all likelihood, that you get in high school is not going to be the same level of hand-holding at college. Oftentimes, this communication only or mostly goes to the student, right? So not all this might be coming home. So you just want to have the mindset that as our list of colleges comes to fruition and we choose these 8-10 colleges, we are going to proactively go on to their financial aid websites to see what they need, how they need it, when they need it, et cetera, right? That's really, you want to put the onus on you. Don't miss deadlines. Do not give colleges excuses to give you less money. And you don't want to, we've seen many people that would have been eligible for financial aid not get any, or not get as much as they would have had they have everything submitted by the deadline. So do not miss the deadlines. And again, it's up to you all to figure out who needs what and when, right? And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but those scare tactics are for good reason here. So again, the FAFSA, everybody's going to require this. We encourage everybody to submit it. At a minimum, it makes you eligible to take advantage of, like Peg said, the federal direct student loans. And in most cases, there are very few exceptions. We recommend everybody take advantage of that program. There's many reasons why, which we can kind of get through regardless of who you are, or we will talk about throughout the year, but probably not tonight. You can't access that yet, right? So for you, class 2023, and this is you all, right? The wolf is almost at the door here. This is who we're talking to tonight primarily. We can't access this until October 1st. The earliest deadline, with very few exceptions, we don't know everybody's next year yet, is November 1st. So usually you have a month to get this in to make sure you're satisfying priority deadlines. But again, that's a general term, and it's up to you to figure out individually when each of your schools are going to require theirs. The FAFSA is going to break on day one and for the first week. And if it's anything like last few years, but especially last year, it's going to break throughout. So that's like probably the most frustrating part of this particular form. It's going to get easier moving forward. There's some big sweeping changes that, if you've seen any of our presentations around it, are coming down the pike, but that's not happening until a year from this October. Okay. Now the CSS profile, right? Our colleague, one of my best buds, Uncle Bill Rabbit, as we call him internally here, how he sums up the FAFSA and the CSS profile is that you can very likely get through the FAFSA with a glass of wine or two. The CSS profile is going to require probably a bottle, maybe more. Maybe we're getting into the liquor cabinet. I mean, I think this is the form that really gives people headaches, and gives, for most people that you're hearing about your colleagues, these forms are a nightmare, blah, blah, blah. I think this one is what's really drives people nuts. It's longer, it's more invasive, it's more nuanced. They're going to ask you a question, for example, and there's more kind of along this theme, what can you pay for college, right? And these poor parents, you all are going, yeah, I don't want to say a number that's too high, because then will I damn myself and have to overpay? If I say a number too low, is that going to impact the chances of my kid getting in, right? These types of questions that makes this form a beast, right? But this is our little pump up speech, is you just got to power through, right? Sucks. It's not fun. You're right, but we gotta get through it if we want to be considered, certainly for any need-based aid. And as Peg mentioned, at some schools, it could also mean, making you eligible, throwing your hat in the ring for merit-based scholarships. This is an appropriate time to address, I think, and then I get kind of my last slide, and then we'll talk about how we can all, how you can interact with us beyond tonight. But if you're a divorced or separated family, I saw a bunch of questions in there, right? The first thing that we always point back to, what school are we talking to? Who are we talking about? right? Because everybody's going to be different. And again, UCLA and Rice are two great examples, right? And are not terribly uncommon to be on one family's list. And if we're a 2-household family, UCLA, where and this is just about all state schools, right? Very, very few exceptions. Most state schools require only the FAFSA, right? University of Michigan, UVA, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill would be a couple of those exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, state schools only require the FAFSA. The only information that goes on the FAFSA is that of the custodial parent or parents, right? So it is only who the student lives with. So if the student just lives with biological mom, only mom's information goes on the FAFSA. Right? It's as if the other biological parent does not exist. It doesn't matter if they live in the same apartment complex. If those parents don't file tax returns together and there's a different physical address, it's only who the student lives with the most, right? That's how the rules work today. If that parent is remarried, right? Now that is considered a custodial parent, even though it's a step parent, and it is their combined information that goes on the FAFSA that's going to dictate the EFC, that's going to dictate the need-based financial aid eligibility, right? Again, biological parent that is not in the household doesn't matter, doesn't exist, doesn't impact things. CSS profile in some ways are different, right? With very few exceptions, these institutions that require the CSS profile want the details via the CSS profile from both households. They want the custodial parent and parents information. If that parent is remarried, they want those combined information. They also want the non-custodial parents information. If that parent is remarried, they want that new spouse's information as well. And that's all going to go into the fact gathering process that's going to have an impact on the EFC. Right. So generally speaking, the schools that only require the FAFSA, only looking at custodial household, most schools that require the CSS profile, looking at and considering both households. There's exceptions to that rule, right? University of Chicago, Vanderbilt University, Rensselaer Polytech, RPI up here in the Northeast. Those are schools that are private CSS profile schools, but they also do not consider the non-custodial households information. Right? They reserve the right to, but they do not, as a general practice, consider the non-custodial parent or parents' income, assets, etc. So that again, what the big theme here is that hopefully you're hearing is it depends on the school, right? And that's the we don't want to leave that up to chance. We want to do that ahead of time, because especially if we're a family that's somewhere in this divorce separated situation, it's going to have a huge swing on what potentially on what schools are going to be most cost effective, right? It looks like, okay, so I just got this in the wrong order of operations here, but there's some massive FAFSA changes coming. And again, Peg and I do a hour-plus presentation on all these changes. They're not happening for this year, but just a couple of things I want to flag. Number one, I just talked about a big one, divorce separated families. How this works, it's changing completely. Now, with the FAFSA is going to want the information from the household that provides the most financial support, right? I think this is going to be very messy because I think it's a gray area for a lot of families, right? I know in my experience, it's a gray area where maybe one household pays child support, but the custodial parent pays the mortgage, pays for sports, pays for groceries, et cetera, who provides more financial support. You can probably make an argument for a reasonable argument for both sometimes. But that is how the rule is changing. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with other reasons why I think that's going to be messier than cleaner, but that's my opinion. We'll see how it plays out here. We'll see how it plays out live. I appreciate the challenge. I certainly understand now. It's not, it doesn't come without plenty of problems. There's still plenty of problems and challenges in the current system, but I think the change is going to come with more cons than pros, and in my opinion, hence why we have it in this category. My general theme: what are the good changes here? The people that need money the most are going to be getting more money, right? So we can all agree on that being a huge positive. That the folks that need the most help, there's going to be more help on the way, right? That's the long and the short of it. The FAFSA itself is prohibitive for many families about About 67% of low-income families do not complete the FAFSA, largely due to its complexity. And so the FAFSA is going from 100 plus questions to around 35. So that's a huge win. Okay, so hopefully more folks, especially those that need it the most, are getting their kind of across the finish line here to get them as much help as possible. And I've seen this question a bunch of times. Families with multiple children in college will no longer receive a discount. Right now, the federal formula basically chops the EFC in half. As a matter of fact, let me just really quickly go show it in the platform. So for this family, I have the younger sibling is 1 year younger, right? But if I kind of change this to say that this family is going to have twins, they're both going to be graduating in 2023. Now, you probably don't remember the EFCs. I basically don't either. But essentially what happened is now the EFC got chopped in half. Okay. So to reflect the fact, as a matter of fact, the EFC was 49 at the federal level. Now we're showing it go down to 27 because there's 2 in school. What's going to happen when that rule goes away is they're still going to say, the federal formula is still going to say, well, actually, even though you have 2 kids in school and the same income and same assets, you can pay $49,000 a year per kid. The long and the short of that, I think you can probably tell, I think it's a disaster to the point where I started a petition to try to stop this from going through. We've been working our butts off behind the scenes to get in front of major decision makers. We have, I think, about 65,000 signatures currently.
I just put it in the chat. So you can go there.
Please sign it. Please share it. Put it on social. Because the basic feedback, we've been able to take some baby steps to work our way up some viable chain of command. But they're telling us until you get $100,000, until you get 100,000 signatures, there's probably you're probably not going to move the needle. That you're going to need 100,000 signatures to get in a room with actual decision makers. And we are 65% of the way thereabouts, all just by sharing this out really organically. So please help us do that. It's going to help you. It's going to help your peers, etc. We'll go 5 minutes over here, everybody, because I want to spend just a few minutes talking on this slide and then talking about how you can interact with us moving forward. And I teased this earlier, and again, we will talk about this in December when the first financial aid award letters come out. We'll be back in March when the second major batch of financial aid award letters come out. But that is, once we get an award, how can we potentially go back to colleges and get more money, right? And the one kind of thing that we flagged here was, the fact that maybe 2021, your base income year was an anomaly, was an aberration, and you had a higher income that year. But you can document, hey, here's what it was before, here's what it is now. That could certainly be a case for getting more money from a school. The biggest variable in all this, generally speaking, is the school that we're talking about, right? Most state schools, state schools, public universities that use the federal formula, it's very black and white. So unless we have one of these, kind of few scenarios or God forbid type of situations, whatever the formula spits out is what the formula spits out, for better or for worse. And there's not a lot of conversation, gray area that happens with these financial aid offices, with these admissions offices. It's more black and white. Are there exceptions? Of course. Do those conversations happen? Of course. Does it mean you should never even bother appealing at those schools? No, because you got nothing to lose. But the general expectation is it is what it is. Whereas schools that are private schools, institutions, CSS profile schools, and again, kind of private schools in general, oftentimes there's more gray area. There's more decisions and conversations and creativity that can potentially happen again behind closed doors. Does that mean it's going to be successful? No. But as we talk about this again in general terms, which is always dangerous, because like I said, there's no kind of one size fits all universal recommendations, formulas, etc. But at the state schools, we expect that what we get initially, barring something really wonky, that's the deal, take it or leave it. Private schools, it's almost the opposite mindset. I expect I'm going to at least be able to do a little bit better. But again, is that going to happen 100% of the time? Of course not. And there are some big talking points. And these are, like I said, we have a lot of financial aid counselors that are part of our team currently employed. And this is something that they help us with to say, hey, how do we best go back and present our situation to these colleges, right? And just to quickly talk through some of these. Number one is, in most cases, the financial aid office doesn't necessarily work hand in hand with the admissions office. They don't know that the best day of your life was getting the acceptance letter. The worst day was 2 weeks later getting the financial aid award letter, right? And we want to communicate that and bring some color and make it beyond just the numbers, but we want to do that being kind. Right. Actually, the way that we had it was be persistent, but be nice. Right. You want to have a relationship with these folks for 4 years. I'm sure that our financial aid counselor that's on here tonight would tell you that they are much more motivated to help a family that they want to work with over the next 4 years than that family that's ripping their face off and threatening them and whatever. Right. The process matters here, especially when you have human beings making a decision. Make their jobs easier, ask for a specific amount of aid, right? Show that you've done your homework. We know that this is going to be a huge stretch, but if you all could come up with another $5,000, right? This could be, we're still going to be extending ourselves, but that would be enough for us to commit today, right? Depends on the school, but this is where it can be really powerful to have competing awards, right? And applying to competing colleges, right? We do have to think about, they're nonprofit institutions, but everybody is in business here, right? Everybody is participating in a pretty big economy here. So some schools, it doesn't matter at all. UCLA, they don't care if you got a better, and again, I'm speaking for an institution, but it's my experience, they don't care if UC Santa Barbara gave you a better award in most cases. Give it a shot, but they probably don't care. My alma mater, Stonehill College, they do care if you got a better offer from our rivals at Bentley University. I promise you, right? And we show this many, many times over every year. So those are some of the big talking points that I think are important to hit on. So a couple of things in terms of what happens next year, what our recommendations are, and I'll go back to this page, but let me first just again flag this boot camp that I want everybody to sign up for, because I think it's going to be awesome. I'm psyched. Again, we're not going to charge anything for it. We're going to cap the amount of registrants that we allow for this. So we will fill up at some point, right? We're not going to fill up anytime soon, but again, we're going to spend a day. You're going to hear from the best, the number one essay specialist, the number one private scholarship specialist, the number one test prep specialist, right? The number one admissions application specialist. We're going to have student athlete section. We're going to have a kind of savings 529 section. Again, even if you can't attend any of them live, your student can't attend any of them live, just register. You'll get all the recordings, and then we're going to package it up real nice after to have it all live in kind of one ecosystem. Here's your recordings. Here's your slide deck. Here's your offerings, because there's going to be unique offerings, right? Obviously, the boot camp is free, but if you like what the college essay guy has to say, Ethan Sawyer, he's going to let you know, here's how you can interact with me and my firm moving forward. And then part of the deal with our partners to get invited to this week is they have, and they will share unique coupon codes that just kind of our boot camp members get access to, type of deal. If you decide to engage in any of these partners beyond the week. So anyways, I know Peg put that registration link in there.
Yep, I just put it in again.
Cool. And then the last thing here, right, in terms of working with us specifically, I mean, here's the deal, and for those of you fans that have been with us before, oftentimes when we do these events, we'll do sometimes scholarship giveaways. So attend and register and attend all our events, because there's going to be scholarship giveaways throughout the year. And some of them are pretty generous, right? Just today we do it, not today, but we cut checks for $2,000, for $500 for previous registrants, right, at our webinar. So continue to stay engaged with us, but to kind of take it to the next level, right? Just tonight, if you want to upgrade, okay, use this coupon code SAVE 2023 for 23% off, which I think is pretty significant. So if you want to have unlimited net price calculator, have that advanced search, have access to our $9 billion private scholarship search engine for a year, for a whole year, just upgrade tonight. Put this coupon code in, SAVE 2023. What I would probably recommend even beyond that is our valedictorian option, right? Includes the platform for a year plus 1 hour with one of our experts, right? So I'm talking about the director of financial aid from Harvard Medical. I'm talking about Peg, right? Peggy, you can get a freaking seat at the table with Peg here, the fairy godmother of financial aid in the flesh, right?
Okay.
All right. Well, and she's on vacation. I'm giving her 2 weeks off. Starting next week. So whatever, her schedule might be relatively limited, I would imagine. But anyways, and do that valedictorian, you get the 23% off, which I think is like $60, and you get an hour with any one of our experts. You can do first available or cherry pick, plus access to the platform for a year. So, and I'll say this is recorded, right? So call me on it. If you don't think that you got a return on the investment with that hour with our platform for the year, 100% refund. You say it's recorded. Matt said it it'll be right about the 1 hour and 7 minute mark. I'm getting my money back. That's how confident I feel about it. Especially where these are massive investments. Right. So I think the amount we're consistently able to save people for making a little, and I'm not minimizing it, but making an investment in us to have access to this platform and us and our experts moving forward. I mean, that's why we hold ourselves out there with a lot of confidence, because I think we deliver on that with a lot of consistency. So hopefully because I got a ton of questions around, well, how do we interact with you guys beyond tonight? I hope that's so yeah, one of the questions is, what if we only need your services for a specific thing? Only book an hour. Do the valedictorian option, and it says, what about financial aid? That's the only thing we care about. Book an hour. We'll talk about how to appeal specifically for that. How that help you talk about read through your award. Sometimes these award letters themselves, that's one thing we do on the platform. Is help you translate these awards. Yeah, you can upload your award letters, and we translate what's a grant, what's a scholarship, and actually kind of with that, let me just showcase, because we didn't show the other pieces of the platform, but we want to do every pain point of the process. So, okay, here's what this school is going to cost you, but can you afford it, right? And what does that mean? Well, to us, it means what's it going to cost you over 4 years? What can you come up with as a family before you start borrowing? And then what's that delta? And based on that delta, and this is what really speaks to the kids, teenagers, they don't know the difference between 33,000, 96,000, or 187,000. I've never met a teenager that knows the difference between what it means to borrow those amounts. They're abstract numbers. But what they can get is, this is my first monthly payment, and this is going to be my expected take-home pay based on the major, based on the institution, right? Does that make sense? I have a summer job. I know what it means to make $2,000 a month, and don't make $2,000 a month. Damn, that's a big payment, right? Does that work? So that's something that we just want front of mind as people are making this massive investment. We got a really robust private scholarship search engine, line by line instructions, live and on demand, and all the resources you need to successfully complete a CSS profile, right? And then once you get these offers, we can go ahead and type in, you can upload these, okay? And we're going to help you actually be able to translate, well, what's the difference between a need-based grant, a merit-based scholarship, et cetera. And it's going to help you compare apples to apples. So, and we're going to identify, did you get a good deal at Holy Cross? Can you go back and appeal for a different additional consideration? Finally, how do we pay the bill? When do we use what resources? And if we need to borrow, how do we do that the right way, right? So basically what we identify is every major pain point of this process. We want to make sure that we're providing a solution, right? And that's a combination of the tech and
well, and it's just planning, and then we'll let you guys go because we're way over here. But understanding what's affordable for you and looking at that in a 4-year window. I do that with everybody that I meet with, and parents, it's a relief, right? Because you know what you're signing up for, and that's so important. These are some big ticket items, right? And you can compare the schools from that standpoint. So, if you're thinking about, I don't know what I can afford, that's awesome. You're starting to think about it. And that's what really matters here, right? I just want to clarify real quick around the divorce piece. In the financial aid world, if you're divorced or separated, it's the same thing. So if you're separated, you live in different places, you fall under that rule. It doesn't matter that you filed your taxes together. That's very common the first year. I'm not going to get into how you should submit the financial aid forms, but you should get some support from us around that, because it's very specific how you should do it so that it's advantageous for you, and you're sharing with the colleges your actual reality as opposed to what was valid 2 years ago. So that's just easier to answer live here.
100%. And then for your colleagues, friend, neighbors that couldn't make it, we will, again, everybody will see the recording tonight. We'll do some type of discount tomorrow, and I think it'll be like 10% or something like that. So there will be some type of discount, but we reward those that are on live with us, right, Peggy?
Yes, we do. And also remember, there are a lot of great questions around twins and is that going away? Remember, this is only the FAFSA schools, right? So the CSS profile schools, they may follow that, but most of the schools we're talking to, they're either like, we're not even thinking about that yet, or no, we're going to stick with what we're doing. So this becomes a really kind of fun planning opportunity, because a school that could have a much higher sticker price, if they're going to still discount by 30 or 40% because you have twins, which is how they do it, that could end up being a lower cost school for you than a lower sticker price FAFSA school. So hopefully I haven't confused you, but that's a new reality potentially starting in the 24-25 school year. So there's bunch of people with twins on here. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of different planning. So
no doubt. All right, Peggy, let's let the people go. Let's let ourselves.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.
We'll follow up with you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.